giving honor to God who is the head of all of our lives. Pastor Williamson, to her husband in his absence, all other clergy, members of this St. Mary, to Brother Turner who invited me, and to my clique who was with me today. My mom, and Reverend Mary Washington, Shannon, and my almost favorite niece. Not quite. And certainly to all of the guests, family, and to loved ones. Good evening. It's my delight to stand here today to give this appreciation message to JD. And I'm glad. I really wasn't aware that this was a surprise. I've seen him a few times now. I'm glad I didn't say anything. I told it all. And I told him the date and everything. But it's okay. He's getting ready to go off to college. My favorite TV show, call it A Different World.
Yeah, all right.
And it's definitely that. And as I look out and I see many preachers, Reverend Gann and my mom, and of course this pastor here, and I wonder why I'm standing up here as a non-preacher, but it's okay. I'm delighted anyway to have the opportunity. I've watched JD for a little while now from afar. He's always been very serious, and very poised, and you can tell that he's poised for greatness. And I believe that, and he's always been very mature. And it's funny because you'll be around him and then you'll see his parents, and they're all real chipper and everything, and him and his sister are real serious like. So it's a great family. He has two very hard-working parents, and they have a genuine love for the church and for God's people, and certainly for the Lord. And he himself has inherited that love and accepted the call to preach. We come this day to thank God for using him and for him making himself available to be used. You can give that a hand. Give that a hand. As this day has approached and gotten closer, it's sad to me in a way, because I know this is one of the last events that I'll be doing this summer as it comes to an end, and have to get ready to go back to school here soon. But I've enjoyed my summer. I can say that truly, and because I know that next summer isn't promised to me, so I have to enjoy every moment while I have it. And so today I came to not only encourage JD, but myself, and as well as many of you. And I hope that you get something out of what I say. Since you have come back to church, I pray that you brought your Bibles back with you, or have at least charged up your phone so you can use the app and everything. But I hope this is a familiar passage today that I'm coming from, Samuel chapter 17, verse 48 and 51. And I also want to look at 2 Samuel in those first two verses. And it reads, as Goliath moved closer to attack, David quickly ran out to meet him. Reaching into his shepherd's bag and taking out a stone, he hurled it with his sling and hit the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sank in, and Goliath stumbled and fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with only a sling and a stone, for he had no sword. And then David ran over and pulled Goliath's sword from his sheath, and David used it to kill him and cut off his head. And then that next one, 2 Samuel the 5th chapter, verses 1 and 2. It reads, and all the tribes of Israel went to David at Hebron and told him, we are your own flesh and blood. In the past, when Saul was our king, you were the one who really led the forces of Israel. And the Lord told you, you will be the shepherd of my people of Israel. You will be Israel's leader. As I was thinking about what to say today, as a topic, I had so many going through my head, but this is the one that came to me. Giants aren't oppositions, they're opportunities.
All right.
Giants aren't oppositions, they're opportunities. As we look at this very familiar childhood story that Mom used to tell, it impacted me in a different way when I started reading it a few weeks and days back. And while thinking about what to say today to encourage this young man and young preacher, I was reminded of another young man. He was the youngest son of Jesse. I believe his name was David. As a boy, David was faced with one of the hugest physical oppositions in his life, the most fearful and imposing force in the Philistine army, and his name was Goliath. On this particular time in the Bible that the two faced off, it was not in David's plan to go fight Goliath, let alone kill him. But yet David's father had sent him to take food to his older brothers at King Saul's camp. But when David got there and caught up with his older brothers, he saw Goliath as he walked around and taunted and defied the army of Israel. David got upset when he heard this defiance, and he said, "Who is this Philistine anyway, that he can defy the army of the only true living God?"
All right.
David was ready to fight. He began to go out and tell many men in the army. You know how we do in school. When you have beef with somebody, you got to tell everybody that you're ready to fight them. This is what David did. He went out and told the men in the army. He told his brothers, and even went to King Saul. And he said, "I want a piece of this Goliath." Earlier, King Saul had issued a reward to the men who killed this pagan Philistine. And in my mind, as a competitor and a person myself, I can imagine that this reward did nothing but add fuel to David's fire. David was down. He was ready. He told King Saul, "Let me at him. I'll go and fight Goliath." David, who cared for his father's sheep and goat, felt as if he was qualified, or maybe even overqualified, to fight Goliath, where he had fought off and killed lions and bears who had come in the pasture to steal the lambs from the flock that he cared for. And David believed that his God, who had given him the strength and the power to defeat the lions and bears in the pasture, that same God would help him defeat Goliath. And we, just like David, serve God that will work on your behalf when you believe that he can do nothing but fail.
Well,
David already knew before the fight that he had won. He was confident in what God was going to do in him. As we see in that 46th verse of this same chapter, where he tells Goliath, "Today I will conquer you and kill you, and then I will give your dead bodies." He said, "I will cut off your head, and then will I give your dead bodies of your men to birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel." David, with the help of God, did just what he said, and he defeated Goliath, killed him, and cut off his head. This boy, David, defeated the odds that were set against him, and the doubts and fears from those in the army of Israel, his brothers, and King Saul. David stood up for God as a boy. He had the faith, and he won the fight, and God brought him out victorious. But this is what I want you to hear today, and this is my message to you. David, the eighth son of Jesse, born to a poor sharecropper, born into a family with no noble descent, no royal background or prestige. David, who was the least in a poor man's house, who was the rejected son, who was not beloved by his brethren. David, whose job was to pick up sheep and goat droppings and care for them and live out on the field on the pasture. But God had a plan for David's life. And this boy, poor, smelly, unroyal, forgotten, dirty David, who comes down to fight Goliath, and through that one victory, God changes his whole life. And one day becomes the king of Israel. So my message to us all today is that you may be facing some giants in your own life right now that are coming against you like never before, bringing you down. But I encourage you not to see the giant as an opposition, but rather see the giant as an opportunity to be used by God. And God is letting us know in this text that once we depend on him to help us defeat those giants in our life, He's going to place us in the palace that he had prepared for us. David hadn't planned to be fighting. It was God's plan for his life. And David stepped out on faith. David had the faith, and he did the unexpected. So JD, today, I want you to know that David was not a man when he defeated Goliath. He was a boy with just a sling and some stones. So I believe that God was training David for what he had in store for him later in his life. But the good thing about our God is that he doesn't wait till we get grown to choose and use us, but rather we are chosen in the womb of our mother and set aside for a purpose. And he was chosen when he was in the womb of Dr. Mitzi, and God then already had aside for him for a divine purpose. JD, you have made yourself available for God to use you just like David did. And for that reason, you can overcome any giant that this life will throw at you. So continue to allow God to use you. Have the same faith and courageousness that David exhibited throughout his life. And JD, you just like David will one day receive your crown.
All right.
To each one of us assembled here today at this grand occasion, remember the next time you're faced with a giant in your life, don't see it as an opposition, because it's really just a chance to be used by God. God keep you and bless you is my prayer.